Wait for a moment and take a slow breath, because something has quietly shifted in the unseen world. If you have felt an unusual emotional pull lately, if your thoughts keep circling back to one specific person without any clear explanation, if your intuition keeps whispering that something is changing beneath the surface, this message may have found you for a reason, because your soulmate is losing control over what they feel for you. And their next move may change everything between you. Not someday far in the future, not eventually, but sooner than you think. There is a reason their energy has started feeling louder in your life recently. A reason their presence seems stronger, even through periods of absolute silence. A reason the distance between you suddenly feels charged, almost as though something invisible is gathering momentum behind the scenes. Your soulmate has been trying to contain these emotions for far longer than you realize. They have tried hard to remain composed. They tried to convince themselves they could stay emotionally detached. They tried to believe that this connection could simply be ignored or delayed until the feelings weakened naturally with time. But something completely unexpected happened instead. The more they resisted you, the stronger the connection became. Read that slowly inside your spirit, because it matters deeply. Every single attempt they made to suppress this bond only intensified it further. What they once dismissed as simple attraction slowly evolved into an emotional obsession of the heart. What they thought would fade instead followed them into quiet moments, sleepless nights, crowded rooms, ordinary routines, and unexpected memories that appeared without any invitation. And eventually only one thought kept returning you. That is precisely why they are losing control now. Because some connections do not ask permission before changing a person's life completely. Some souls arrive like thunder beneath calm skies. Some people are never meant to become forgettable. You were never meant to become forgettable to them. Pause right there and truly feel the weight of that truth. They may appear distant on the surface. They may pretend that everything feels completely normal. They may carry themselves as though they are entirely emotionally unaffected. However, behind that mask, there has been ongoing emotional chaos. Behind every delayed message, every moment of hesitation, and every confusing cycle of hot and cold behavior, there has been a private internal battle unfolding. This is because your soulmate now understands something that frightens them to their core. This connection has gone far beyond ordinary attraction. It is no longer casual curiosity, no longer temporary chemistry, and no longer surface fascination. They feel something with you that they simply cannot recreate anywhere else. That realization has unsettled them much more than they expected. Because when someone encounters a connection they cannot logically explain, their very first reaction is rarely surrender. It is resistance. Why does this happen? Because a real connection demands profound transformation. In order to love you honestly, they would have to become entirely honest with themselves first. First, they would have to stop pretending, stop hiding, and stop avoiding what this bond awakened deep inside them. They would have to release old fears, old emotional patterns, old attachments, and old versions of themselves that no longer fit who they are becoming. A part of them has been utterly terrified of that exact process. They were terrified that if they fully stepped toward you, their life would change permanently. They were terrified that once they admitted what you truly mean to them, they could never return to the emotionally disconnected version of themselves they used to be. But listen very carefully now, because this is the absolute turning point. They are finally reaching the stage where fear is no longer stronger than desire. That single reality changes everything, because eventually the human heart grows exhausted from running away from what it was created for. Eventually, pretending becomes much heavier than honesty. Eventually, silence becomes completely unbearable. Eventually, distance begins feeling less like protection and more like punishment. Your soulmate is approaching that exact emotional threshold right now. You may already have noticed subtle signs of this shift. Their attention feels different lately. Their energy keeps appearing unexpectedly in your life. Their name resurfaces repeatedly. Memories of them arrive without warning. The universe keeps placing reminders of them in your path at strange moments. That is never random. That is emotional movement gathering beneath the surface. Something inside them has been building pressure quietly for a long time now. Pressure, deep longing, emotional urgency, and sudden recognition. They are beginning to realize that losing you would hurt them far more than risking vulnerability ever could. Once a person reaches that realization, emotional restraint starts collapsing very quickly indeed. That is precisely why their next move will not feel casual. It will not feel emotionally shallow. It will come straight from the breaking point of someone who can no longer suppress what their soul already knows to be true. You might think they are calm right now. They are not. You may think they have forgotten about you. They have not. You may think they are perfectly fine living their life without you. Take a closer look. No one who truly feels nothing struggles this hard internally. No one who is emotionally unaffected keeps revisiting someone repeatedly through thought, memory, emotional energy, and quiet longing. Your soulmate is not losing interest in you. They are losing emotional control. When a human heart loses control over feelings this deep, something inevitable simply has to happen. Movement occurs. Unexpected movement, bold movement, perhaps emotionally imperfect, but entirely undeniable movement. Therefore, if your intuition has been whispering that something is coming, trust that feeling completely. If your spirit keeps sensing that this chapter is approaching a major turning point, listen carefully to yourself, because their next move may become absolute proof. It will be proof that the feelings became far too strong to continue hiding. It will be proof that your absence became too painful to ignore. It will be proof that destiny has a strange way of cornering people who try running away from what was meant for them. And this is only the beginning, because what they do next will reveal just how deeply this connection has already transformed them internally. Comment 111 below if your intuition has been feeling stronger about this person lately. Sometimes the soul notices movement long before the conscious mind understands why. Something is building now beneath the silence, and your soulmate is feeling it much more intensely than they even know how to explain. What once felt manageable to them emotionally has started slipping far beyond their control. The distance that once gave them comfort no longer feels peaceful at all. The silence that once felt safe now feels heavy and suffocating. Every single day they continue trying to suppress what they feel. The emotional pressure inside them grows even stronger. This is why their energy has become so much louder around you lately, because silence is no longer protecting them. Instead, it is completely exposing them. There is a specific moment that happens inside people when resistance begins collapsing. It is very subtle at first. They continue acting normal outwardly. They continue moving through their daily routines, conversations, responsibilities, and distractions. But internally, something fundamental changes. Their thoughts become much harder to silence. Their emotions become harder to manage. Their memories become sharper instead of fading away. That is precisely where your soulmate is right now. They have entered the stage where you are no longer simply someone they think about occasionally. You have become entirely emotionally unavoidable. Your presence follows them into ordinary moments. A song suddenly reminds them of you, out of nowhere. A random phrase pulls them back into memories they thought they had successfully buried. Quiet nights become dangerous for them because silence gives their feelings room to rise. Even crowded rooms fail to distract them completely because underneath every distraction, something much deeper keeps calling your name inside them. That is what they have been fighting all this time. They are not fighting you. They are fighting themselves. The most exhausting part for them is this simple truth. The more they try not to think about you, the more emotionally attached they actually become. The more they attempt to regain emotional control, the more their heart reminds them that this connection is far from ordinary. This is the exact reason why they have appeared emotionally inconsistent. Some days they move closer toward you. Other days they suddenly disappear again. Some moments they seem emotionally open and vulnerable. Other moments they retreat back into absolute silence. It is never because they do not care about you. It is entirely because caring this deeply scares them far more than they ever expected it would. Understand something very important here. People often mistakenly believe that emotional distance means an absolute absence of feeling. However, many times emotional distance actually means the feelings became far too intense for someone who simply does not yet know how to process them honestly. Your soulmate has been completely emotionally overwhelmed by what this connection awakened inside them. This happened because you did not simply enter their life and create temporary attraction. You completely disrupted emotional patterns they had lived inside for years. You challenged emotional walls they firmly believed were permanent fixtures. You awakened parts of themselves they had carefully learned to ignore. That kind of profound connection changes people from the inside out. And true transformation is rarely comfortable at the start. In the beginning, they genuinely believed they could outthink this connection. They believed logic would eventually overpower emotion. They convinced themselves that distance would weaken the attachment naturally over time. But something completely unexpected happened instead. Distance magnified your importance instead of diminishing it. Your absence became significantly louder than your presence used to be. And that realization has shaken them to their core because now they are starting to understand something that changes everything emotionally. You were never just another person passing through their life. You became true emotional significance. You became emotional peace. You became emotional truth. And now that truth follows them everywhere they go. This is why your soulmate has started feeling so emotionally restless lately. Their nervous system no longer feels comfortable pretending this connection means nothing at all. Their heart keeps interrupting the version of reality they tried creating without you in it. Even when they try moving forward emotionally, something inside them keeps turning back toward you. That creates an internal tension they can no longer easily escape from. They may not fully understand it themselves yet, but deep down, they are beginning to realize something entirely life-changing. Nothing has felt the same since you entered their world. Other conversations feel much flatter now. Other people feel emotionally distant. Other connections lack any real depth. Because once the human soul experiences genuine emotional recognition, ordinary interactions simply stop feeling satisfying in the same way. Your soulmate has been comparing every single emotional experience right back to you without even meaning to do so. That continuous comparison has slowly dismantled their protective resistance piece by piece. At first, they tried distracting themselves with busy work, and they desperately tried denying the heavy feelings. Then they tried actively controlling them. But now they are finally approaching the final stage before complete surrender. That stage is acceptance. Not necessarily perfect acceptance just yet, but a growing acceptance. It is the kind that quietly whispers inside someone late in the dead of night that this unique connection is entirely real. And once someone reaches that emotional stage internally, their behavior begins changing naturally. You may already notice it happening in subtle ways. Their attention toward you feels much more focused than before. Their curiosity about your daily life feels significantly stronger. Their emotional energy appears unexpectedly out of nowhere. They seem deeply affected by your distance now in ways they never were before. That is precisely why their next move may feel so sudden to you, even though internally it has been building up for a very long time. The message, the conversation, the emotional confession, or the genuine attempt to reconnect will not truly be spontaneous at all. It will be the direct result of countless hidden internal battles, finally reaching total exhaustion. That is why this next chapter between the two of you feels so different energetically. It is no longer being driven purely by surface attraction. It is being driven by profound realization. It is the realization that your absence hurts far more than vulnerability ever could. It is the realization that emotional suppression is no longer sustainable. It is the realization that they might lose something completely irreplaceable if they continue running away from what they feel inside. That realization changes people profoundly. It especially changes people who once believed they could control their emotions completely. Your soulmate is discovering right now that they cannot control this anymore. Not fully and not forever. Once emotional truth reaches that level deep inside someone, movement becomes completely inevitable. That is why the silence between you no longer feels empty. It feels charged with energy beneath the heavy stillness. Their heart is finally preparing itself to move toward total honesty. Comment 222 below. If you feel the emotional pressure between you and this person becoming stronger lately, even through the silence, what your soulmate is experiencing right now goes much deeper than simply missing you. It goes infinitely deeper because what truly changed them was not only your physical presence, but what your presence awakened inside them. That is the exact part they were never prepared to handle. That is why this connection has become completely impossible for them to escape emotionally. There are certain people who enter your life and merely leave temporary memories behind. Then there are rare people who enter your life and alter your entire emotional landscape forever. You were definitely the second kind. You awakened true emotional honesty inside them. You awakened deep longing. You awakened raw vulnerability. You awakened deep self-reflection. Perhaps most frightening of all for them, you awakened hope. It is the hope that a real, genuine connection actually exists out there. It is the hope that true emotional depth is entirely possible. It is the hope that love can feel deeply meaningful instead of just performative. That single realization alone has unsettled them to their core, because many people spend years emotionally disconnected from themselves without even realizing it. They learn comfortable routines, endless distractions, emotional survival strategies, ways to avoid vulnerability, and ways to avoid needing anyone too deeply. Then one day, a single person arrives who naturally bypasses all of those carefully constructed defenses, and suddenly, nothing feels emotionally safe anymore. That is exactly what happened to them when they met you. You bypassed the emotional armor they spent years building, not through any force or manipulation, but simply through pure authenticity. Your genuine energy reached places deep inside them that other people never even touched. Now they can never return to emotional numbness the way they once lived before you came along. That is precisely why their resistance became so intense. They felt resistance was the only way they knew how to maintain personal control. But here is the raw truth about genuine emotional recognition. Once the soul truly recognizes something meaningful, denial becomes utterly exhausting, and your soulmate is now deeply exhausted. They are exhausted from pretending, exhausted from suppressing their feelings, exhausted from acting completely unaffected, and exhausted from carrying heavy emotions they can no longer explain away logically. This is the exact reason why their inner world has become so chaotic lately. A part of them desperately wants to rush toward you immediately. Another part of them still fears vulnerability. A part of them wants guaranteed certainty before ever risking honesty. Another part already knows that true certainty will never come through maintaining distance, and that internal conflict has become heavier for them with each passing day. The longer someone suppresses their emotional truth, the louder that truth inevitably becomes internally. That is why they keep returning to thoughts of you unexpectedly throughout their day. That is why ordinary memories feel emotionally alive instead of fading away with time. That is why random moments suddenly carry your vibrant energy. That is why they feel emotionally pulled straight toward you, even when they are actively trying not to. This connection has become permanently embedded inside them, and deep down in their heart, they already know it. That is the exact part that is changing everything right now. It is not a fantasy, and it is not temporary attraction. It is pure recognition. It is the deep recognition that your soul touched theirs in a way life very rarely offers twice. That realization has finally started humbling them emotionally. They are beginning to understand something quite painful. They almost convince themselves to walk away from something truly real. People often do not realize the true value of emotional truth until they face the terrifying possibility of losing it permanently. That exact possibility is haunting your soulmate right now. It is the haunting idea that you might eventually stop waiting around emotionally. It is the idea that someone else might eventually receive the emotional depth that was always meant for them. It is the idea that they might become nothing more than a fading memory in your life while you continue evolving and growing without them. Those painful thoughts disturb them far more than they would ever care to admit out loud. Underneath all their stubborn hesitation lives one undeniable truth. They do not want to lose you. They do not want to lose you emotionally, and they certainly do not want to lose you permanently. That deep fear is slowly overpowering all of their old, worn-out defenses. This is the reason why they have been emotionally observing you much more carefully lately. They are watching your energy, watching your reactions, and trying to understand if your heart still carries a safe space for them. Once someone finally realizes what they truly feel inside, uncertainty becomes a terrifying place to live, especially when they know very well that they caused the distance in the first place. Your soulmate now fully understands that their lingering silence had serious consequences. Their hesitation created an emotional chasm between the two of you. Their fear delayed something genuinely meaningful. Now they are trying to figure out whether that distance can still be repaired. That emotional urgency is growing stronger and stronger every single day. That is the main reason why their next move may arrive much sooner than you expected. It will not happen because they suddenly solved every single fear inside their head. It will happen simply because avoiding you has become emotionally impossible. Here is something very important for you to understand as well. Their eventual return is not solely about desire. It is about a profound emotional awakening. They are waking up to what this connection truly means in the grand scheme of things. They are waking up to how deeply you affected their life. They are waking up to how empty life feels when emotional truth is entirely absent. Awakened hearts rarely remain silent forever. especially when they finally realize the person they love may eventually move forward without them. That specific possibility creates intense emotional acceleration. It pushes people relentlessly toward honesty. It pushes them toward confession. It pushes them toward movement. It pushes them toward taking a massive risk. Your soulmate is rapidly approaching that critical emotional threshold, now reaching the exact point where vulnerability finally feels far less painful than regret. Once someone reaches that point internally, they stop resisting destiny altogether. Instead, they start moving directly toward it, and they start moving directly toward you. Comment 333 below if you feel this connection changed both of you deeply, even through all the distance and the silence. There comes a distinct moment in every deep connection where resistance can no longer survive the overwhelming weight of truth. Your soulmate is reaching that exact moment right now. Not gradually anymore, and not subtly anymore, but intensely. The emotional walls they spent so long maintaining are finally beginning to collapse under the sheer weight of everything they truly feel for you. What finally breaks someone's resistance is rarely just one single dramatic event. It is a quiet accumulation of things. It is an accumulation of deep longing, an accumulation of vivid memory, an accumulation of emotional absence, and an accumulation of pretending until pretending becomes completely unbearable. That is what has been happening inside your soulmate quietly over time. Every single moment they tried distracting themselves, every attempt to move forward emotionally, and every effort to convince themselves they could live a normal life without this connection, ultimately failed. Now they are beginning to realize something profound that changes everything internally. You were never replaceable. That realization carries enormous emotional weight for them, because once someone finally understands that a rare connection cannot simply be recreated elsewhere, panic begins surfacing beneath the surface. It is not a loud panic, and it is not a visible panic, but rather an intense emotional urgency. It is the kind of urgency that keeps someone awake late at night. The kind that interrupts ordinary moments unexpectedly, and the kind that whispers, "What if I lose them completely?" Your soulmate is hearing that whisper louder and louder. Now, it is fundamentally changing their behavior from the inside out. They may still appear completely composed outwardly, but inside their emotional pressure is reaching a breaking point. Why is this happening? Because they finally understand what your absence actually means for their life. Your absence is no longer just quiet silence to them. It is real emotional loss. And emotional loss eventually forces honesty out of people, especially those who once blindly believed they had endless time. That is one of the deepest transformations happening inside your soulmate right now. At the very beginning, they simply assumed the connection would always remain available to them, somehow believing there would always be another opportunity, another conversation, and another chance later down the road. But the distance they created completely changed that illusion. Now they are beginning to sense something very different, realizing that you are evolving, growing, healing, and changing emotionally without them. Strangely enough, that realization has intensely magnified their feelings instead of weakening them. Nothing awakens true emotional clarity faster than the terrifying possibility of losing something deeply meaningful forever. That possibility has become starkly real to them now, and it scares them to their core. It does not scare them because they fear being alone in a general sense, but rather because they deeply fear life without you specifically.